vaccinations being rolled out across the UK in record time, I feel that all the anti-vaxxers' complaints are pretty much null and void due to the sheer amount of data being returned from that. This is going to get into all manner of arguments, but what I have done is a video compilation that hopefully should be following this little snippet, explaining my own experience with the vaccine. But I mentioned in this intro something interesting that might actually give it some theological relevance. That this could show we take things too much for granted, and often to understand how good they are, or they're no longer there, or more likely, fail to give them their due. Hence, they start going wrong. If you don't want to get into the theology of it, that's fine, you can stop the video right there. Or if you don't want to hear about my vaccinations, I'll give you a timestamp for you in the description. Until then, I hope you watch the video and understand. Yes, I've just been given my letter for my COVID vaccine. Most people think, why am I getting it this early? Well, because I've had a heart condition when I was little, and that means I'm considered high risk. Not major, but all the same, I can see why they want to ensure everything's fine. Now, after seeing quite a few misleading videos about COVID, which can lead some people to believe this is all a big hoax and the vaccine isn't going to do anything, I'm thinking it might be worthwhile doing almost a log of what happens once I've had the vaccine. It's going to be later tomorrow evening, so I'll have a full day to set my baseline and work out what's going on before not only having a full day of work afterwards, but also a few days to get an idea of what the side effects are going to be. Add to this, I've heard that some people had some pretty nasty side effects. I've heard they can be like having a hangover. Having had a few hangovers before, I know what that's like. The only person I've known to have even a nasty case hasn't been a big drinker, so I don't know what the tolerances are like. Plus, they've been weakened from the actual virus. So, whilst I am very much a vaccine person, I'm going to do this honestly. Not going to do any biases, hopefully. I'm going to give all the information that turns up as I receive the vaccine, as I experience any side effects, and how I continue my work normally. So I'm going to give you a couple of baseline bits of information so you will see where I lie on the spectrum and what happens. Firstly, I'm nearly 26, about 5'9", 5'10". I really don't want to weigh because I don't really care, and I work a fairly active job. Muscle movement, normally I can do archery, I work in a forge, so my arm gets used quite a lot, and I walk, I really don't know how far every day, but just to get a baseline for that, I have acquired essentially a mini pedometer, so hopefully that will give me a baseline for what my walk is going to be. I've got a pretty good area tomorrow to do, so I'm going to see what it's like. Baseline health at the moment, I've had a bit of a on-off head cold, something spreads to my chest, and quite recently every morning I have had my ears blocked up a bit. Although I might twitch on my left eyelid that I've only really started noticing in the past couple of days. And also quite recently, my watch has been giving me a weird sort of rash on my wrist. All these are before I even consider taking the vaccine, though I am going to do it. Another couple of base stats for you. My diet is largely vegetable based, mostly due to my parents being not vegetarian, but drifting towards a vegetarian diet. We have meat on occasion, mostly fish, or occasionally a roast. My lunch generally consists of generally some ready-made sandwiches from supermarket, or even sausage roll, Scotch egg, maybe even some pork pies. And when I'm done with my morning work, I generally go down the forge and either do some basic artisan stuff or just start pounding away on some metal. My general liquid consumption consists of tea, water and juice with dinner. So I think on average I'm probably in the middle of the statistics, though I'm willing to say right now that due to the fact statistics cover multiple people rather than just an individual, I'm willing to accept that what happens to me isn't necessarily going to be the rule. Far from it. For all I know, could be one of those people with what I deem Aunt Lottie syndrome. Basically, what happens to me is not the rule, it's the exception. But for all that, I think I'm still within a good range to be an average. And mostly doing this because I know quite a few in my friend group don't like the idea of the vaccine, don't like the vaccines in general for that matter. And so may be willing to avoid going through it. That's their choice, I'm not going to fault them for that. But just to demonstrate this vaccine works and ultimately, well, to see what it does, I'm willing to take it and show you guys the results. It probably won't change anyone's minds about what they're thinking regarding vaccines, but for me, if it means I get to see my friends sooner, I get to do the jobs I actually want to do, and more importantly for me personally, when my brother's child is born, get to see them, I'll be much happier. So this is why I'm doing this. I'll keep you up to date as my day goes on, and I'll see what this last research brings. So you can join me. So I've just done my morning rounds, done my morning walks, did my posting. That covered about 9.5 miles and took around 5.5 hours, maybe nearer 6. Current physical condition, body-wise, I'm fine, not really out of breath. Legs, a bit sore. Shoulders a little bit achy, so my neck. My back hasn't been troubling me for a few days, so I did use my beanbag this morning. Generally, I'm pretty good. Had as well lunch on the way round, so I'm perfectly fine with that. And I'm just going to head home and have a cup of tea before, well, getting ready for my appointment. I'll tune to something that I can just roll the sleeve up and they can sit the needle in. Don't really like that idea, but whilst I don't like the idea of needles, I'm not a big phobe. Not a big phobic. Either way, just letting you know what my condition is currently as a baseline. Let's see, just tingling my pedometer. As I said, I did about 9.5 miles walking. Coming out of that's about just gone 3 o'clock on that, so that would have been about yeah, 5.5, maybe 6 hours. And I walked over 27,400 steps. Granted, I don't know what my stride length is exactly. I tried measuring it last night using an arrow, but I really don't know. And so that was more in my room rather than on the street. So, there's just some very crude stats so we can figure out what I'm going to be like over the next few days after that vaccine. So, better shut down and head home. So I'm just walking back from getting my vaccine. So straightforward actually. Just do the list of things that could be concerned. Like say, have I had COVID symptoms? Have I had cold or flu in the past few days? Anything like that. Very straightforward. I was warned that once I had the vaccine I could end up with slight fever, sort of flu-like symptoms, and a very sore arm, was in the left arm, for about 48 hours, or at least within 48 hours. So, there are things to be aware of. But since they are alerting us, it's not like they're hiding any side effects. That's the important thing. I'll do an update tomorrow about what I feel like and what's going on physically. Yes, I do have a runny nose, but it's a bit of a cold night. I probably should be wearing my gloves right now. Physically, I was okay, though I'm hoping to be a bit dead by tomorrow afternoon when I'll be down the forge. Knees are a bit tired, but while I've been travelling around a fairly up and down town all day, I'm pretty sure I'll be doing that tomorrow as well. And yeah, well, basically it's just aches and pains from a day's work. So I'm not really expecting anything more. Could definitely have a bit more to drink in the next few days, but hey, I've been wanting to do that for days, weeks, months even. There's never been getting around to it. So I hope you can see all this, and I'll give you an update tomorrow, possibly before I start work, but most definitely once I finish work. So it's about 8 o'clock in the morning, and had my jab yesterday. So far all seems well. I had a bit of a sore arm last night, but only because I was looking for it, I think. And whilst I did have a very, very minor headache, again I think I was just looking for it, so people say it's like being hungover. I've had worse hangovers, much, much worse. So really, I don't think there's much to worry about. So, gotta keep an eye on myself, make sure everything's okay. Got plenty of water, probably drink before I start my rounds. And then I'll just see what I'm like when I finish my rounds today. It's not going to be that hard, I reckon. This area looks a bit dense, but I don't know how many houses will be available to post at. I've only got about 600 bags to give out, so that's not too bad. Just looking at the number of flats here, that's going to be an issue. But yeah, it's fine, my job to sort that out. So far, just a bit of a tired leg from yesterday. Minor blocked nose and definitely blocked ears this morning. Back's okay. Left arm, again I can feel it aching very, very slightly, but compared to what I was originally expecting, that is absolutely nothing. So, see what the rest of the day brings. Got a few collections this afternoon, so I'll try and do a update later and see what it's like. Just a quick update. Finished the rounds. Legs about as tight as I'd expect. Left arm is beginning to ache a little bit more notably. Not even looking for it this time. Don't think it helped that I was carrying some heavy stuff around my bag, so that would have certainly caused a problem. In case any of you were wondering, the vaccine that I received was the AstraZeneca. So that's all fine, got the English one. My mileage today, walking was about 7 miles. So really not too bad at all. And apart from that, I'm perfectly fine. As swamps on lunch, when I went a little bit more, was having a cup of tea and then helping my mate with something. So, all in all, so far, so good. See you in the next couple of days, deal with me. So it's first thing in the morning, it's about 7 o'clock, and currently my arm's still a little bit sore, probably because I slept on it a bit weird, I don't know. Apart from that, I'm okay. I didn't have any ill effects, didn't really have any weird dreams like that, well, no more weird than usual. Legs are okay today, I thought they were a bit more tired, but clearly the rest yesterday has done me good. It's a bit nippy today, so I'm not going to hang around much longer. Need to get on with my rounds. But I will say this. My mother, who has taken the same vaccine a few hours before me, she did have a bit of a bad spell yesterday. Now, she's on medication for other things, so whether it's a reaction to the vaccine, whether it's just the side effects of her own medication, whether they interacted badly, or if they have anything to do with it at all, I honestly don't know. Could be that she's slightly weaker, and therefore more vulnerable to side effects. Could be the vaccine has nothing to do with it at all. Just bearing all that in mind, though. Trying to give you all the information that I have currently, rather than influence you in any other way. Just give you what information I have. Okay, I better get on. I can still feel my arm twinging a bit, but hey ho, it's a muscle, it's been stabbed with a needle. Of course it's going to be a bit sore. So I best get on before it starts freezing up. Quick update, did my runs, had a very good haul. Physically, I'm very good. Didn't get much done the force, but that's due to logistics and just annoying people around. But physically, I'm doing very well. Left arm felt a little bit sore, same with my right arm for some bizarre reason, but probably because yesterday I had a very heavy backpack across my shoulders for most of the day. Now that's one thing I forgot to mention actually, that yesterday I had not only my pockets full of bags, but also my backpack was carrying an extra 125, something like that. So that was going to be a weight. Otherwise, all's good and no ill effects. Can feel my left arm getting a bit sore at the moment, but well, otherwise, head home, see what tomorrow brings. So it's 10:45 in the morning. Just finished my first round, and well, it's going to be a nightmare getting more stuff in if I can. But physically, I'm doing very well. Legs are okay. Left arm felt a bit sore earlier, but in all fairness, I was playing with the gears and the handbrake a fair bit, so that's to be expected. Bit of twinge behind the shoulder at the moment, but probably because I need to crack my neck. My mum described her sudden hit of symptoms as just a sudden fever, sudden series of chills. That was the other night. But she was perfectly fine yesterday morning. I experienced slight chills when I was working in the forge, but Well, I had taken off most of my layers, and I was working in a pretty cold room. Apart from standing next to a forge, obviously. But that aside, it really wasn't much. It really wasn't anything at all. So, physically, I'm doing very well indeed. I'm doing some recording tonight, so I don't know if I'll bother doing another update, but if I do, it'll probably be sometime tomorrow, just giving a final feel. So we'll see how that goes. Ultimately, I'm doing pretty well. Just want you guys to know that it's Saturday, and basically, nearly a full week after my vaccine, and I've had no effects whatsoever. A slight sore arm, but that's really it. No illness, no fever, no nothing. I'm quite happy just doing my usual stuff. Haven't done anything like being more tired, haven't noticed about anything being more stressed. Really, everything's been okay. Yes, I don't much for a beard anymore, but well, when you need your comb, you have to trim back your beard fully. That's just personal choice. So really, whilst this has no scientific basis whatsoever, ultimately, the vaccine hasn't any effects on me personally, and apart from a slight burst of fever late in the night one night, my mother is perfectly fine from her vaccine. So, what's nice, some people that might try to target with this particular video won't actually see it due to one thing or another. At the end of the day, I personally haven't had any issue with the vaccine. I've only heard of one person having any issue with any of the vaccines, namely dying after getting it. But that was not only one in a very, very few people compared to millions of others who've had the vaccine. It's also not the vaccine that we're having in Britain. So, those of us who are having the AstraZeneca should generally be okay. All others, I'd rely on people who have taken those vaccines to give you personal updates. Otherwise, go on the statistics given by most medical professionals. Otherwise, that's basically it. I'll try and upload this at some point, so hopefully I'll be going to into my 27th year, things will be a bit more interesting, and hopefully with this vaccine we'll be able to meet other people and actually start rebuilding not only our friendships, our connections, but the economy that people are worried is going to collapse completely. Thank you for joining me on this journey. So as you saw, all in all, I was pretty good. So I would like to start off by saying that I've often remarked that God is too good. More often as a compliment than anything else, since he has done some incredibly sharp and funny things that are just harder to ignore and not laugh at. The one thing that many people see as evidence of God's handiwork is by its very nature inexplicable and beyond all human ken, that being miracles. So those of us who compliment God like this almost naturally get rebuffed by naysayers and atheists that say that God, even if he does exist, isn't good, and in fact is either totally incompetent or downright evil. To us, I can't really blame them, since famine, disease, all that sort of stuff is across the land. And certainly this pandemic been dragged on for almost a year now, possibly I haven't checked the dates properly, can be a sign. But I put this question to you: what if God being too good is actually the very problem? As I've just shown, my vaccine went without a hitch, and unlike some people I know, I managed it without any of the effects. Granted, I am wearing a lot of layers, so it looks like I may have a fever, but that's simply because heating's been off all day, so this being Scotland, it gets a bit chilly. But all being said, it always seems too good to be true. Granted, that is often a warning sign for it being a scam, but bear with me here. One of the fastest and best responses to the COVID-19 outbreak was in Australia, where they instigated a nationwide lockdown and as a result had fewer COVID-related deaths than almost anywhere else on the planet. I don't know where it ranks in terms of how good and how bad. I'm pretty sure New Zealand is somewhere in that same region, even though they technically broke the constitution to enforce the lockdown. But I mentioned Australia because I was perusing news websites once, or rather a news outlet, and I saw something interesting. That the lockdown was so effective that some have started questioning if it was entirely necessary, if it was necessary at all. Since now they've practically eradicated the virus. It could just be a trend on the news sites to keep people riveted on their stories and to stir up the bees' nests. But that sort of statement has been trending in anti-vaxxer forums for a good long while, saying that certain diseases like measles, mumps, rubella have been declining before vaccines were even put out in the public domain, and so has degraded the results of the vaccine over their term of use, which, if you bear in mind in terms of medicine, is remarkably short. I don't know the exact dates, but it can't be any more than 100 years at most. In a strange way, this reminds me of a Doctor Who episode, where the Doctor, played by Peter Capaldi, breaks down the main survival strategies used by animals. Become the ultimate hunter, develop the best defense, or be the best at hiding. Whilst, in my opinion, this episode isn't that great, the concept behind the monster isn't that far-fetched, since there are animals that do camouflage themselves so well that finding an individual is near impossible. I once gave an example of such a creature to find in one of my videos. I'm not going to tell you what that creature was or where to find it, but I'll add a link to that video in the description below. Hopefully. No, I'm not very good at that. To be fair, we have found some of those creatures, thus I was able to give you a photo. And the point of that section of the episode was to explain why we talk to ourselves. Though I don't think it's because we know we aren't actually alone. But it does cover the driving force behind development and evolution. The ultimate hunters have super senses, speed and power. Those that get hunted either learn to run away quickly or develop armour, spikes and poisons for the best defence possible. And some, of course, just develop amazing ways to hide in plain sight. Now, those of you that follow my videos regularly, which is very unlikely at this stage, I'll be honest, will know pretty much where I'm going with this. Because this naturally asks the question, what is God's driving? What does he ultimately want, and how does that show in his work? This is actually a deeply personal question, since we are delving into God's will and what that means for us. And this reminds me of another quote, but from a movie. I can't remember the name of the movie. I know the eventual name of the character, though I know if I say it now it's going to be a massive spoiler, so I'm not going to mention that particular name. But I think the quote is something along the lines of, "The greatest deception the devil has ever made is convincing people he doesn't exist." This is not untrue. If we take the devil's goal as causing division, pain, suffering, hurting as many people as possible, and making sure that we are the ones who make that choice to cause that suffering, then convincing people that he doesn't exist is actually a very good strategy. We are naturally a very suspicious people, and we tend to suspect manipulation at every turn. So we are more likely to resist someone who tries to tempt us to do bad things. Not always, I'll admit, but if we feel manipulated, then this is quite often the case. For example, if you think someone is determined to make you do something bad, unless you are so inclined already, you're not going to do it. You will at least resist manipulation. If we don't believe that the one tempting us is actually there, or don't believe they are tempting us to do something, then we are more likely to go down that darker path, since we don't think we have anyone to resist. Granted, this isn't universal, and situations can present different temptations or repulsions depending on the person and situation, but it serves to prove that just because we can't see someone manipulating us doesn't mean they are not. This can lead into all manner of manipulations, such as subliminal advertising, background information, even some deep psychology. But it still bears in mind that we don't like being manipulated often, and so we'll naturally try and resist something, unless we think they are not trying to manipulate us. This again asks, however, what does God want? It's easy enough to extrapolate back from what the devil wants, since it is famous that he is opposed to God, therefore God wants the very opposite of what he does. The thing is, though, sort of already done that in reverse. Some time ago, I summarised sin to be a deliberate or malicious act that directly or indirectly negatively impacts someone or someone's. It's a bit wordy, I'm not quite sure I got the wording right. I haven't looked at that video for a bit, so I'll leave a link to it in the description. I will admit that does mean, since sin is then the knowledge that the act being harmful is vital, sinning in ignorance is almost impossible. But the point is, since the Hebrew word chata means to miss the goal or to get lost, and clearly the goal is to prosper with as many people as possible, God can, in this case, be the personification of goodness itself, and so is a good thing. to follow. Again, I think I mentioned this in another video, so I'll simply link that below. I'm going to be linking a lot of things in this video. I need to remember them. Now I know I'm just rehashing the old videos, but the main question is, if God is too good, and so finding out what he does is important. So how can it be too good to be goodness itself? How is that a bad thing? Too much of a good thing, maybe? Well, one thing that many people have been saying that we should do is doing good things for the sake of doing good, not because we are scared of the consequences of not doing it. Again, I've said it before, but I think we've had this down so far that even some atheists who refuse to accept the existence of God, I've seen them promoting goodness for its own sake, doing a good thing because it is good. These aren't people who hate good things in the world. They just don't like the idea of doing it because we're scared. They want us to do it because it is good and kind, not to restrict themselves to such things within a narrow view provided by some Bible bashers. And that is incredibly powerful. The thing is, because some things are so good, we don't notice how good they are until it isn't anymore. We end up taking those things for granted. And hence, we feel as though certain parts are not required. In fact, they are. A personal example I can give is when I was at school, I needed some extra support to help me with my classes. I have dyspraxia and therefore struggle with written work and concentrating lessons. So, one school I went to, they gave me plenty of help. They made sure I had TAs with me in quite a few lessons, and that worked very well. So, in fact, they decided that because my grades were going well, I clearly didn't need any more help. So, they removed it. And for a while, they couldn't understand why I was struggling in my classes again. They were a bit odd like that, to be honest. Another example is when my sister-in-law had her personal independence payment slashed because she seemed to be managing okay, and so clearly didn't need it. She was only managing okay because of those payments, giving her the options. If you understand the logic here, it's a bit like disconnecting the fire alarms because the building has never burned down, or knocking out a load-bearing wall since the house has always been standing. In short, they remove the very thing that keeps it going because it doesn't seem to be a functioning part or seems to be perfectly fine. So I think, let's just remove that thing that is clearly holding it up. The concept is hard to put into words, and the logic defies belief, but I think you get the drift of it. Now, I hate getting political, but I think you can see where this is going. The National Health Service, the NHS, has functioned well enough for many years, and quite frankly, does a very good job at keeping the population healthy and getting them well again. However, they have been drastically underfunded for quite a lot of the recent decade. And as a result, many things are going downhill. I know many people are probably going to say, since the COVID crisis is nearing its end, Lord willing, it shows that the NHS has been working perfectly fine on the funding it has, which isn't great by any stretch. Maybe, but I'm more inclined to think it's because of the wonderful and dedicated people who work in the health sector, who put in their overtime, made the near impossible happen. Not because they're paid enough, very unlikely, but because they are good people. They plough on regardless of how low their paycheck is compared to the average politician. And that is an important thing to bear in mind. They are good people, regardless of their beliefs. The fact that they are doing their job for the sake of others, just as much, if not more so than for themselves, is proof that goodness can exist in such trying times. Even if we can't see it, that's God in the moment. It doesn't have to be a grand display of might and power, wiping away the disease and curing all, be they deserving or not, but shining a light in the darkness, that we may find the hope and perseverance to plough through and bring the world back into shape. One thing that I see on occasional internet shops is a t-shirt with a Knight Templar on it, or on the holy orders of knighthood, and the caption on the shirt says, "Do not pray for an easier life. Pray instead for the strength to face the life we have." Many people say that the phrase "God helps those who help themselves" isn't biblical and so shouldn't be followed. But the Bible does give us a couple of verses that essentially mean the same thing. Most notably in the book of Matthew, I think it's chapter 7, verses 7 to 8. "Ask and it shall be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened to you. Everyone who asks, receives. The one who seeks, finds. And the one who knocks, the door will be opened to." Luke says something similar, I think in chapter 11, I don't remember off the top of my head. But I think the important thing to remember here is the ordering. Granted, the Greek word kai doesn't necessarily have a direct timeline from one to the other, merely is a conjunctive. But if I was inclined to write a version of the Bible, I would say, ask for it to be given to you. Seek for you to find. Knock for the door to be opened to you. It's not the door is open, don't bother knocking. It's not don't bother asking, it is yours to be taken. And it's not you will find it, so don't bother looking. There's one verb, and then the next verb. Your action followed by God's action. Ask, it will give. Seek, you will find. Knock, it will open. That is, in a sense, looking for help. And since looking for help is helping yourself, this has enough biblical connotation for the phrase to stand on its own 2 feet. God doesn't just make things happen. He gives them to us so we can make them happen. He gives us the options. We have to make those options. We have to take those opportunities. That job you've been looking for won't just appear suddenly and you suddenly have it. No, it will appear, you have to apply for it, you have to make the effort. You find someone that you love, you still have to make the effort of the relationship. This virus won't cure itself, and since not everyone is willing to protect themselves, if we can face the needle, then it's our duty as people to protect those we love and our neighbours from it. If the virus is so rampant that towns, counties, entire nations are locked down, then it's our job to protect people by keeping our distance from people, remaining indoors, and self-isolating. Yes, the economy will struggle, it may suffer, but much like our bodies fighting off a virus, it is far better to take it in one long drag than take hit after hit until we can't get up again. If the economy were going to collapse because of lockdown, it may have already happened by now. And it wouldn't have made any difference how many loo rolls one has stored in the basement or in one's garage. So to summarise, we take so many things for granted. We barely notice a good thing for what it is until it's no longer working as it should due to neglect. If our NHS is struggling, we need to help in any way we can, be it big or small. If our economy is looking weak, we need to prevent it from taking any more nasty hits. And if our relationship with God isn't looking too good, we need to look at ourselves to see what we were doing and getting it right once. So those of you who are worried about this vaccine, I hope I've shown you, as an individual at least, there's little harm. Those of you who want this lockdown to be over, take the vaccine, it will be over a lot quicker, and it won't happen again, not anytime soon. Those of you who are currently wondering if God is any worthwhile thing to pay attention to, just remember, He's probably helped you in more ways than you ever know. One pastor once said, "You may not think that one week you need God because it's gone so well. The thing is, God has helped you that week. He did it so well you didn't even notice." In a poem I heard read in Sunday school once, don't know what it was about. One verse was when God was showing the poet's life, and at the trying times, they were walking across the beach, 2 sets of footprints. During the good times, 2 sets of footprints. In the bad times, only 1 set of footprints. The man thought that was when God had abandoned him. But in fact, during those bad times was when God carried him So, let God help you. Let people around you. And let us together show the world just how good God can be. So good, in fact, that we barely even notice. He is that. God be with you.